Greetings, I'm Bill Kladky of the Greater Baltimore Community Housing Resource Board, and I'd like to welcome you to this morning's edition of Neighborhood Beat. Our guest today is Mr. Keith Merkey, who's a human relations representative for the Maryland Commission on Human Relations. And Keith is here this morning to talk to us about employment discrimination, about housing discrimination, and about how we can all work and live better together. So Keith, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
And first of all, for those of our viewers who are unfamiliar, could you tell us a little bit, please, about the Maryland Commission on Human Relations?
Well, the Maryland Commission on Human Relations is the state civil rights organization. We've been around for about 82 years. Started in the late part of 1926 as the Interracial Commission of Maryland, and really began because of race relations, because of the issues between African Americans and Caucasians, especially in the area of employment. And so over the years, many different categories have been added. We now cover housing and public accommodations and employment for discrimination prevention. And so we also, the number of categories of people we protect also have kind of increased, not just race. It also includes gender, includes age, sexual orientation, familial status, marital status, ethnicity. So we have a larger base by which we know people base their prejudicial judgments on and therefore their behavior on.
Okay, thank you, thank you. And your job as a human relations representative is to make sure that we all get along.
Well, that's very simple. I would love for that to happen. But my main concern is really doing training and education. So I work with employers. I do outreach events for different communities, whether it's in housing or in employment. We do training for small groups. For probably every organization that is in Maryland can call us for free training on things such as sexual harassment, diversity, cultural competence, conflict resolution. We do those kind of trainings.
Right. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is that you're out there working among folks and asking folks about what kind of problems are going on.
Right.
And you're coming up with solutions and working with them on solutions to these. So every time I talk to you, Keith, it's like getting a status report on how Marylanders are doing working together and living together.
It is.
How are we doing?
I think Maryland probably is I consider top of the game of many states. We're like one of the top 5 states in hate crimes. Now that sounds horrendous for Maryland.
Yeah, it
but one
does.
of the reasons is that we have a great reporting system in place. And we have police officers and groups that recognize hate crimes and therefore report them as such. There are some states that don't report any. There are some states that have lesser qualifications for what a hate crime is. And so, but we're very tuned into it. For example, Baltimore County has a unit dedicated solely to hate crimes. Now, that doesn't happen in many places throughout the United States. And so, therefore, we have higher numbers. Some counties report a lot more than other counties do. And so it's a process of learning about what is a hate crime. And when it comes to hate crimes for us, is we just kind of coalesce all the information from the state troopers. For example, we don't do much with hate crimes except for that part. But that's just kind of an example. I'm more afraid in this downturn in the market that many people may not complain about job discrimination. They are terribly afraid of losing their job, the retaliation that might occur, even though that itself is illegal. They are terrified of the retaliation that may occur if they bring a complaint. So that would be coupled into housing where people be afraid because they need where they live. So they're afraid to really make a complaint.
And so you're seeing that in your trainings.
I hear that from the EEOC, that a lot of that people are a little more reticent now to bring a complaint than they used to be.
Whereas the law is that retaliation is against the law.
That's right. And there have been cases where where companies have been found not guilty for discrimination, but guilty of retaliation. But there have been places who would say, if someone brought, for example, a sexual harassment lawsuit, the company would just fire the person that brought the complaint, the person they complained about, and every witness that saw it. They thought they would just clear it out.
What can the commission and the court do to combat that?
Well, that's why the law for retaliation is in place, because they will, that's put there so that a person has the right to bring a complaint. You have a right to complain, and we may investigate and find that does not rise to the level of discrimination. And you should have that right to be able to do that and have it resolved, even if it's through our mediation program. It's resolved. But if you bring a complaint and the person says, "Oh, we can't have that," you're fired.
Right.
Then, therefore, that kind of sets up a kind of a negative feeling in the workplace that people can't ever, not just complain, they're afraid to express a concern about something that's going on.
And they should.
They should, because I think that's early on, especially. What I've discovered that a lot of, and you see this in a lot of our complaints that may be found to be non-cause, there's always a problem. It may be a communication problem. It might be a information problem. It might be a hurt feeling problem. But there's a problem, and training and education helps that early on. If you do that proactively, you get people to talk to one another and get to relate with one another at work on a different level than just like, can you help me do this?
Yeah, because that then, if there's that underlying problem, can lead to much, much, much bigger problems.
Right. For example, if you've gotten to know a coworker and they say something off the cuff, you're more likely to just kind of blow that off. You go like, "Oh, you're just being funny," or "Oh, you didn't mean that." But if you don't know that person very well and they say something and you go like, "What do they mean by that?" And then all of a sudden it can get bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you start to read into everything they say or do as to being against you. And then that can lead to a complaint, which then we may find to be non-cause, but the damage is already done. You've already damaged a relationship with a coworker that you might very well need.
And the business is hampered, or the nonprofit or whatever it is hampered in getting what they need to get done.
Right, because then the clients suffer because you have two coworkers that don't speak to each other. It's also this concept that we spend so much more time with our coworkers sometimes than our own families. We do. We may
for
spend,
better or worse.
Right, for better or for worse. We may spend 40, 60, 80 hours with coworkers. In prime hours.
Yeah.
Versus getting home, have dinner, put the kids to bed, and you may have more time on the weekend. So you really do spend more time with coworkers. So it is better for you to develop a better relationship, communication relationship, knowledge level relationship, different from things like gossip, where you want to talk about the bad stuff about a person's life.
But I guess your message is then that, based on your experience in trying to resolve these problems and trying to unravel problems, is that even though it's a pain, especially perhaps to males that don't like to talk as much, that extra talking, that extra relationship, sorting out and defining and just discussion, time is necessary to avoid deeper problems from developing.
I think one of the good things about not just even conversations, I think it's the knowledge level we have of each other. If you have a coworker who is struggling to care for a dying mother, I think it's important that we know those things, because I can say, "I'll take care of that. You go home. I'll take care of that for you." We may be able to do those little humane things for people that creates for us a different relationship level.
Yeah,
it becomes a reciprocal relationship. And also, I think if we really do truly take the high road in things, like being polite to people, being courteous to people, even when we don't feel like it. I tend to be a very social creature. Even when I'm not feeling well, I can be a very social creature. But I know there are people